Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take, well, often quite fragmented bits of information and try to piece them together into knowledge you can actually use.
Hmm.
And today we're doing something a bit different. Our sources, they're not your typical academic papers or news reports. They're actually excerpts from transcripts originally designed for C1 English listening tests.
Which sounds dry, maybe, but it's actually a goldmine. If you ignore the test part and just look at the content,
Yeah.
wow, there's this incredible mix of practical knowledge packed in there.
Exactly.
You've got stuff on film theory, real-world startup advice, even down to the minute details on global logistics. It's all presented as these sort of conversational snippets.
Yeah, so we're not treating this as a language test at all. We're treating it as raw information. Our approach is, okay, let's unpack this. What are the facts? What's the hidden context? Are there actionable insights we can pull out?
And for you listening, the goal is synthesis. We're trying to connect the dots across this, well, pretty varied landscape. We'll go from like camera effects in movies to online shopping habits, and then even things like train station announcements. It's quite a ride.
It really is. And we're kicking things off straight away with the big screen. We're diving into a film that, critics have recently been calling perhaps the greatest movie ever made.
Yes. Vertigo.
That's the one. Alfred Hitchcock's classic thriller. It's definitely vintage cinema made back in the 1950s. 1958, I think, to be exact.
Yeah.
Right when Hitchcock was really at the height of his powers.
Yeah, it stars James Stewart playing Scotty, a former detective, and Kim Novak. And Scotty's situation immediately sets the tone, doesn't it? He's an ex-detective, but he had to retire early because of a health problem.
Which is vertigo.
Vertigo, the title condition. It's such a perfect setup for the kind of psychological tension that unfolds. Absolutely. And the plot kicks off when he gets hired sort of privately to follow this woman. She's acting strangely. There's maybe some link to a tragic past.
Yeah.
It's all very mysterious.
Right. And the story, I think the source mentioned it's based on a French crime novel by two writers.
That's right. And Hitchcock sets it so brilliantly in San Francisco. He uses those famous hills, the fog, the dramatic scenery. It really becomes part of the atmosphere as Scotty trails her around.
And Hitchcock himself, he apparently summed up the plot in this really simple way. Something like,
A meets girl, boy loses girl, boy meets girl again, boy loses girl again.
which sounds so straightforward. But the fascinating thing is how much that simple line hides. The source material really emphasized that Vertigo isn't just a simple love story or, a standard whodunit.
Not at all. It's incredibly layered. It's one of those films they say you have to watch multiple times. Not just to sort of figure out the plot twist, but to really get the psychological depth, the obsession, this theme of repetition that drives Scotty.
Yeah, that obsession is key. I mean, sure, it has romance elements and there are a couple of murders in there.
There's the thriller framework.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But its real power, its genius, is in how it explores obsession. And that famous climax scene up on top of a church tower.
Oh, yeah. That's where Scotty is forced to confront his deepest fear, his vertigo, right at the moment of maximum dramatic tension. It's classic Hitchcock construction.
And that confrontation, that physical feeling of vertigo, connects directly to the film's big technical innovation, doesn't it? That specific camera technique.
The vertigo effect, or the dolly zoom, technically.
Right, the dolly zoom. That's what everyone calls it now.
And this is where it gets really interesting, cinematically speaking.
Yeah.
The effect itself makes you, the viewer, feel disoriented. The space around the character seems to warp and stretch.
How do they actually do that? I know it involves moving the camera.
Right. So you need two things happening at the exact same time. The camera itself is physically moving backwards on a dolly track.
Okay.
But while it's moving back, the lens is zooming in.
Ah, so moving back but zooming in simultaneously.
Precisely. And what that does is the main subject in the foreground, Scotty maybe, stays roughly the same size in the frame. But the background behind him It seems to rush away or collapse inwards. It creates this really unsettling visual distortion of space.
Wow. And that's not just a cool trick.
No, it's thematic. It perfectly mirrors Scotty's internal state, his fractured psyche, his disorientation. The effect makes the audience feel that confusion between fantasy and reality, that lack of solid ground. You experience his vertigo with him, in a way.
And the music must play a huge part in that feeling, too. The score by Bernard Herrmann.
Oh, absolutely essential.
Yeah.
It's powerful, almost haunting. It creates this incredibly tense, sort of mournful atmosphere that just amplifies the whole obsessive mood Hitchcock built.
It's amazing how it all fits together, but it wasn't always seen that way, was it? The initial reaction.
It was terrible. Yeah, the source mentioned it got really negative reviews when it first came out. Critics thought it was too slow, too dark, maybe too psychologically complex. They wanted a straightforward thriller, maybe.
But I got this deep dive into obsession and decay.
Exactly. But over the decades, that view completely flipped. Now it's consistently ranked by critics as maybe Hitchcock's greatest film, or certainly one of the greatest films, period. A real testament to how critical appreciation can evolve.
So, moving from that deep, critical look at one film, the source material also had these quick-fire movie facts, almost like a quiz section.
Right.
And they highlighted something interesting, how quickly we identify things, actors, genres, based on really specific visual clues.
Yeah, it shows the power of like a defining detail. They mentioned recognizing actors just from body parts, like Daniel Craig.
His neck and shoulders.
Exactly.
They-
That specific physique apparently just screams Daniel Craig and his type of action role. It's
Yeah.
instantly recognizable.
And for Julia Roberts, it wasn't just her face, but specifically her smile. That perfect smile. Or mouth.
Hmm. These details become like visual shorthand. Your brain just locks onto them. It's almost subconscious identification. A physical detail becomes a brand.
We do the same with genres, too, apparently. You see scary eyes or people running with guns.
And you immediately think horror or action. Makes sense.
There was a catch. The source said that visual cue can be completely overridden if the tone feels wrong. If the look is perceived as silly, was the word used.
Okay.
Then that silliness cancels out the scary eyes or guns, and you instantly recategorize it as probably a comedy or maybe a parody.
Right, so the tonal dissonance is the key. It tells you the genre rules are being played with.
Interesting. And speaking of getting things right, there was a clarification about a really common movie mistake. Director attribution.
Oh, yeah?
Star Wars. People often think Spielberg directed it,
Right, that's a common mix-up.
but the source was firm. Nope. George Lucas directed Star Wars, not Steven Spielberg.
Good clarification. Did it mention Spielberg's actual sci-fi work?
It did, specifically. According to this material, the only science fiction films Spielberg directed were E.T. the Extraterrestrial and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Okay, so just those two.
Yeah.
That's a useful bit of trivia to correct people with. It shows even huge directors have their specific domains.
Definitely. There was also a quick mention about Zorro, the character, comparing actors.
Oh, yeah.
It mentioned the previous actor was Antonio Banderas, who's Spanish.
Right.
And the current actor someone guessed was Gael Garcia Bernal, who's Mexican. Just a small point, but it kind of illustrates that, global casting for these iconic roles.
Mm-hmm. Little geographical shift there.
And finally, in this section, there was this amazing logistical nugget about the movie The English Patient, the Oscar winner from '96.
Ah, okay. Great film. What was the fact?
Well, the story's set mainly in North Africa and Italy, right?
Yeah.
Egypt and Italy. And they did film in both countries.
Makes sense.
But here's the twist. They needed this grand, old, exotic hotel in Cairo as a key location.
Right, I remember that from the film.
Turns out the actual famous hotel in Cairo that fits the description, Shepherd's Hotel, was destroyed, burned down in the 1950s.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they couldn't film there.
Exactly. So the production team's solution, they used a real luxury hotel in Venice to stand in for the hotel in Cairo.
No way. Venice for Cairo. That's quite a substitution.
Isn't it? It shows how production isn't always about just finding the prettiest location. Sometimes it's about historical necessity. If you didn't know the Cairo Hotel was gone, you might just think, oh, they chose Venice because it looks good.
But it was a practical workaround, forced by history. That's fascinating. It really shows how deep the logistics go, even for art. You're constantly bumping up against real-world limits.
Absolutely. And that idea of bumping up against limits and needing practical workarounds, that actually leads us perfectly into our next section. We're shifting from film sets to the real world of fashion, finance, and starting a business.
Okay, so leaving the glamour of movies behind, we're now looking at the, well, maybe less glamorous side of the fashion industry, the consumer experience. Specifically, some very pointed complaints from young shoppers.
Yeah, and these aren't just vague grumbles. The source listed 5 really specific problems people have when buying fashionable clothes today. These are like actual market gaps crying out to be filled.
Let's hear them. What's the first one?
First is just a lack of choice. The feeling that, you go to the mall and all the main stores seem to have the exact same styles at the exact same time. It limits self-expression.
Right. That's the fast fashion effect, isn't it? Centralized buying, chasing the same micro trends. Everything starts to look the same. It's frustrating if you want something unique.
Totally. Second point was about aesthetics and fit, but specifically linked to skin color.
Oh, interesting. How so?
The complaint was that designers don't seem to consider all skin tones when they pick their color palettes for a season. The reality is not every color looks good on everyone. People want collections that work for a wider range of complexions.
That's a really valid point. It speaks to a lack of inclusive design thinking. If you're only designing for one type of look, you're ignoring a huge part of your potential market. It's about representation, really.
Third issue, sizing problems. This came up specifically for tall people. Just finding clothes that fit properly is a real struggle. It suggests the standard sizes are too focused on the average.
Yeah, and that's often a cost thing for big companies. Producing lots of non-standard sizes adds complexity and expense to manufacturing and inventory. So they focus on the middle ground, which leaves people at the edges, like tall people, underserved. Creates a niche, though.
Definitely. Okay, fourth frustration. Quality control. This was a big one. People get really annoyed when they buy something, maybe not even super expensive, but it just falls apart after a couple of wears. Poor quality.
Yeah. Yeah, it breaks trust, doesn't it? Even if it's cheap, you expect it to last a reasonable time. When it doesn't, you feel ripped off. And you're probably not going back to that brand. It undermines loyalty completely.
For sure. And the fifth and final point was about the financial strain, especially with online shopping being so easy now, next day delivery. People find it just drains their bank accounts because they're buying stuff so often.
The friction-free economy. That's classic behavioral economics, isn't it? One-click buying, super fast delivery. It removes all the little pauses that used to make you think twice.
Right, like physically going to a shop, handing over cash.
Exactly. Instead of one big purchase you really feel, it's this constant drip, drip, drip of smaller online buys. Much harder to track, much easier to overspend. It leads straight to financial stress, even if each item isn't that costly.
So you take those 5 things, lack of choice, aesthetic exclusion, bad sizing, poor quality, and financial drain. That's a pretty clear picture of what frustrates modern fashion consumers.
And it's a perfect checklist for any aspiring fashion entrepreneur thinking about where the opportunities might lie. Address those pain points and you've got a potential business.
Which leads us beautifully to Emma. The source material talked about someone's sister, Emma, who actually started her own fashion company a few years back. And her story is like a mini case study in early stage entrepreneurship.
Right. Practical advice was the first step for her.
The initial big decision was what to sell. Men's clothes, women's, maybe both, or kids. The advice she got and followed was crucial. Pick just one thing to start with and really focus.
Smart. Spreading yourself too thin early on is a killer. What did she choose?
She went with kids' clothes.
Interesting choice. Children's wear. It has its own trends, but maybe slightly less frantic than adult fast fashion. More focus on durability, perhaps. Could be a good niche for a startup focusing on quality.
That makes sense. Then came the big hurdle, funding. Like most founders, she probably started with her own savings, but realized quickly it wasn't nearly enough.
The classic scenario. Did she go to banks?
The source mentioned family is often the first port of call, maybe lending money without the crazy bank interest rates. But for Emma, it wasn't immediate family. She actually got her starting loan from a close family friend.
Ah, the power of the network. That's key. Sometimes it's those personal connections that unlock capital when formal routes are closed off, especially for a risky new venture.
Totally. And her setup, her operating logistics were super lean to begin with, which is also key.
Ali.
Like, started in her own bedroom lean. When the business was tiny, that's all the space she needed.
Love it. Classic bootstrapping. Did she have to get an office later?
Apparently not yet. The source said she's currently running the whole thing, packing, storage, everything out of the house garage because it wasn't being used anyway.
Brilliant. Avoiding that fixed cost of rent in the early days is huge. It just relieves so much pressure while you're trying to find your feet and get profitable. That's a founder focused on survival.
But survival wasn't just about being cheap. It took serious effort. The source was really clear on the keys to her success. First off, pure hard work, like all day, every day, hardly took a break.
Yep. No surprises there. That relentless dedication, especially in the beginning, is non-negotiable. It's not just long hours, it's intense focus on getting every detail right.
Second key, contacts. She'd worked at a large fashion store before starting her own thing, and she managed to keep some useful connections from that job.
Crucial. Those wouldn't just be social contacts. They'd be potential suppliers, maybe manufacturers, people who understand the industry's nuts and bolts. That inside track can save you years of mistakes.
Exactly. And third, perhaps just as important, family support. Not just the loan, but practical help. Everyone apparently chipped in with the grunt work, packing boxes, sticking on labels, doing post office runs.
That's invaluable. Having that free, reliable labor for the time-consuming fulfillment tasks frees up the founder, Emma, in this case, to focus on the things only she can do: designing, marketing, selling. The core value creation.
So putting it all together, Emma's story leads to some pretty solid advice for anyone else thinking of starting up, which she apparently gave to her sibling.
Okay, what's the takeaway advice?
Two main things. First, do extensive research. Really dig into the specific product you want to sell. Don't just have a vague idea. Study your competitors intensely. Know their pricing, their weaknesses, the whole market landscape.
Makes sense. Know your battlefield. What's the second piece of advice?
This was stressed as the most important thing. Get business experience.
How? Like, go back to school.
Well, that was one option mentioned, taking a college course in business. Another was trying to spend time, even just a few weeks, inside established companies to see how they actually operate. Inventory, sales cycles, the works, and getting some kind of qualification out of it helps too.
The cottage course idea.
Yeah.
I wonder, is that always practical if you're eager to start now? Could it be more of a delay tactic?
That's a fair point. Maybe the more actionable bit is the spend time with established companies part, like Emma did, working in that fashion store beforehand. That practical, on-the-ground experience. Maybe that's more valuable than a purely academic course sometimes.
I think so. You learn the real-world problems and solutions. Seeing how inventory actually flows, how customer complaints are handled. That stuff's gold. It's not just about a piece of paper. It's about understanding the system before you try to build your own. It prevents those really costly early blunders.
So yeah, whether it's understanding Hitchcock or launching a clothing line, it boils down to preparation, focus, and really sweating the details.
Okay, switching gears again. Completely different world now. We're moving from the strategic thinking of starting a business to the minute-by-minute operational reality of just moving around. Trains, travel, logistics.
Yeah, the source material had some surprisingly detailed examples of train station announcements and disruptions, like real nitty-gritty stuff.
These aren't just boring announcements, though. They're tiny windows into how complex systems manage change and unexpected problems. Like that first example for New York Penn Station.
Right, the 10.02 train suddenly changed platforms from 8B to 9B.
Okay, simple enough change. But what was the crucial detail?
The detail was how to get there. Passengers were told they must use the stairs located right at the end of platform 8B to get across to 9B.
See, that micro instruction is pure logistics. It's not just go over there, it's go this specific way. That's how you manage passenger flow safely and efficiently when things change last minute. You have to direct the movement precisely.
Then there was the bigger picture issue at Chicago Union Station. Major modernization work going on.
Infrastructure projects always cause disruption. What was the impact?
Lots of platforms just out of use, temporarily closed across the station, so the instruction for passengers was,
Let me guess.
yeah,
Check the boards carefully.
exactly. Check the travel boards carefully for all departures, because the normal posted schedules might be wrong. You can't rely on habit when the physical infrastructure is changing underneath you. Communication has to be constant and visible.
And infrastructure is one thing, but then you've got factors you just can't control,
Right.
like the weather.
Right. There was an example of a service being completely canceled. The
Yeah.
6.50 from Detroit to Minneapolis, St. Paul, just gone.
Why?
Severe weather up north.
So one specific train wiped out. Shows the limits, doesn't it? Planners can schedule everything perfectly, but one bad storm hundreds of miles away can shut down a major route if safety is compromised. The system's interconnected and vulnerable.
Even at big hubs like Grand Central Terminal, weather was causing issues. They had specific warnings about icy surfaces.
On the platforms and stairs.
Yeah. Passengers were told explicitly, be careful and allow extra time just to get to your train safely.
That's the cost of caution built into the system. Speed takes a backseat to safety when conditions get bad. They're basically telling people, don't rush, it's dangerous. Managing expectations because of an environmental hazard.
And finally, there was the standard procedure for just a regular delay. The 7.15 train to Boston South Station, delayed by about 23 minutes.
Okay, fairly minor delay. What was the protocol?
Passengers had to check the travel boards on the platforms or in the waiting areas for any further updates. Because, and this was the key part, there would be no further announcements about that specific delay.
Okay. That's interesting. They make the initial announcement, but then the responsibility shifts entirely to the passenger to monitor the digital screens.
Seems like it.
It really shows the move away from constant verbal updates towards relying on digital information displays. If you missed that first PA announcement, you're on your own with the boards. It's all about passenger self-service for information. Hashtag take 3.2, the thrill of adventure travel.
Okay, so from the very structured, almost rigid world of train timetables and platform changes, let's take a leap into something much less predictable. Adventure travel. The source had this great description from someone named Arya.
Right, Aria. And her reasons for choosing adventure travel were really typical of a certain mindset, I think. She was just bored.
Bored of what?
Bored of standard sunshine vacations, lying on a beach, sunbathing for a week. She wanted more. She wanted to actively learn new skills, try new activities.
And it was a social element too, wasn't there?
Yes, definitely. A big goal was to meet other people who were into the same kinds of things, like-minded people. The community aspect was really important.
So where did she decide to go? The location choice sounded quite deliberate.
It was. She thought about Australia first, popular for adventure, obviously, but ruled it out. Too expensive.
Okay.
Then she considered Europe, but same problem, basically. Not cheap, either, was the phrase used.
So the final choice.
Alaska.
Alaska, wow, that's a commitment. Why Alaska?
It seemed like a calculated choice. It wasn't too far away, relatively speaking, which probably helped with costs compared to Australia.
Mm.
It obviously has stunning scenery. And interestingly, they actually expected the weather to be bad.
They expected bad weather.
Yeah, she seemed to see that as part of the authentic experience. Not something to avoid, but part of the challenge, the rawness of Alaska.
Okay, embracing the elements. What kind of activities did she actually do there?
A real mix. She learned to kayak in the fjords.
Yeah.
Apparently, the sheltered waters there are perfect for it.
Sounds amazing.
She also took sailing lessons, which she said was fun, but definitely hard work, like proper physical and mental effort involved.
Right. But what was her favorite part?
That sounded quite different. It was
Yeah.
horseback riding, specifically riding along coastal paths.
Ah.
She used words like peaceful, quiet, just miles of gorgeous ocean views. It sounded like this moment of real tranquility amidst all the other high-energy stuff, a connection with the landscape.
That sounds incredible. Was the whole trip structured or just random activities?
No, it sounded quite carefully planned geographically. They didn't just stay in one place. They actually started inland.
Inland. In Alaska.
Yeah, camping up in the mountains first, learning basic survival skills, how to manage without all the usual modern comforts.
Right. Getting back to basics.
Then they traveled to a different area to explore some national parks, focusing on the landscape there. It was only the last part of the trip, maybe the last 4 or 5 days, that was spent near the coast doing the kayaking and sailing. So they got a real cross-section of Alaskan environments.
It sounds really demanding, though. Was it suitable for everyone?
That's where the planning came in again. The source stressed that the participants were split into groups based on their abilities.
Ability grouping. Okay.
Which is crucial for safety, right? It meant everyone, regardless of how fit they were, could actually manage the activities they were doing. The guides were described as realistic. They knew people's limits, but they still encouraged everyone to push themselves a bit, to try hard.
So supportive but safe.
Exactly. And apparently the group had a really wide age range, which suggests that structure, that tailored approach, made this kind of intense adventure travel accessible to more than just, super fit 20-somethings.
It really shows that even in the wild, success comes down to good logistics and paying attention to individual needs. Structure enables freedom, in a way. Hashtag outro.
Absolutely.
Wow, when you lay it all out like that, it's kind of amazing how much ground we've covered today, all pulled from these seemingly simple language test materials.
It really is quite a spread.
We went from the deep psychological layers of a Hitchcock film, analyzing camera techniques like the Vertigo effect.
And how critics totally changed their minds about it over time.
Right. Then we jump straight into the frustrations of modern fashion shoppers, lack of choice, the sizing issues, the quality problems.
Followed by that really practical breakdown of how Emma got her kids' clothing startup off the ground, the funding, the lean operations, using her contacts.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts. And then we finish with pure logistics, everything from how to navigate a specific platform change at Penn Station.
To why your train might be canceled due to weather hundreds of miles away, and the safety protocols at Grand Central.
And finally, the planning behind an Alaskan adventure trip balancing challenge with safety and inclusivity.
It really hammers home the point, doesn't it? That real understanding, true knowledge, often lies in those granular details. The specifics matter.
How do you mean?
Well, the connection across all these different topics, film analysis, business strategy, travel, logistics, is the need to synthesize specific facts to grasp the bigger picture. You can't understand Vertigo without understanding the dolly zoom. You can't launch a successful startup without knowing your competitors' pricing inside out. You can't run a safe adventure trip without ability grouping.
So what's the final takeaway for everyone listening? What does this all mean?
I think it means that being genuinely well-informed isn't just about knowing the headlines or the general trends. It's about digging deeper, Understanding the underlying mechanisms, the how and the why, often live in those small, specific details.
The kind of details we found packed into these language test sources.
Exactly. Material designed just to test language comprehension turned out to be full of deep, factual content. So here's maybe a thought to carry away. How often in your own life, maybe in your work or even personal decisions, do you rely on generalized assumptions? When maybe the key to navigating a situation successfully or making the right choice lies in one small specific piece of overlooked information, like knowing why that hotel in Cairo wasn't available, or the precise way a camera move creates an emotion, or exactly which staircase to use on a train platform.
Are we overlooking the crucial details hidden in plain sight?
Perhaps. So the challenge is to keep questioning. Assume there's more beneath the surface. Actively seek out that specific, detailed knowledge in whatever information you consume. It might just be the key.